Someone in your life probably thinks you're difficult. Maybe they've said it, maybe they haven't, but you felt it. You make things complicated. You take too long. You push back when everyone else just goes along. And maybe part of you has wondered whether they're right. But here's what psychology actually says. What looks like difficulty from the outside is often something very different from the inside. Research on cognitive ability and behavior consistently shows that people with higher intelligence don't just think differently, they operate differently. And there are specific things they tend not to do, not out of arrogance, but because their minds genuinely resist them. Let's talk about the first one. High IQ people rarely accept explanations at face value. If you've ever been the person in the room who asks why, when everyone else is already moving on, you know what this feels like. It's not skepticism for its own sake. It's a cognitive pattern researchers call need for cognition, which is the intrinsic motivation to think deeply rather than accept surface-level answers. Studies from the American Journal of Psychology found that individuals with higher cognitive ability score significantly higher on need for cognition scales. They're not trying to slow things down. Their brain genuinely doesn't feel finished with information until it understands why it works, not just that it does. This is often misread as being contrarian. It's actually the opposite. The second thing high IQ people tend not to do is follow the crowd simply because it's the crowd. Psychologists call this low susceptibility to social proof. When everyone around you agrees on something, most people's instinct is to align. It feels safe. It feels right. But for people with higher cognitive flexibility, that consensus actually triggers more scrutiny, not less. Research published in the Journal of Research and Personality found that higher intelligence correlates with greater epistemic autonomy, meaning the ability to evaluate ideas independent of social pressure. That doesn't mean they're contrarian. It means they're less likely to outsource their conclusions to the group, which, in a social world that runs on agreement, can make them seem difficult or even cold. They're not. They just can't pretend to believe something they don't. The third behavior is perhaps the most misunderstood. High IQ people rarely take action without understanding the full picture. This gets called paralysis by analysis, and sometimes it is, but more often it reflects something specific in how higher intelligence minds process decisions. They hold more variables simultaneously. They model more possible outcomes, and they're more likely to notice when a decision tree has a branch nobody else has thought about. The frustrating part is that this can look like hesitation or overthinking when everyone else is ready to move. The reality is their threshold for felt certainty is just higher. They don't act until something actually makes sense, not just until it sounds good. Fourth, high IQ people rarely engage in repetitive tasks without pushing back against the repetition. This isn't laziness. Research on cognitive engagement shows that people with higher general intelligence experience boredom more intensely, specifically a form researchers call understimulation stress. When a task doesn't require them to solve anything new, their brains don't just coast, they actively resist. Studies show this population is significantly more likely to seek variety, create their own challenges within monotonous systems, or disengage entirely when the work stops requiring thought. What looks like disinterest is often the brain signaling that it needs more than what's being asked of it. And the fifth thing? High IQ people rarely apologize for their internal world. They tend not to perform emotions they don't feel, or suppress the complexity of what they do feel, just to make interactions easier. This is connected to what researchers call emotional authenticity in high cognition individuals. Their inner lives are genuinely more layered, and they often know it. They're aware that their reactions are sometimes more intense, more nuanced, or more difficult to explain than what social settings seem to want from them. But they're also less likely to fake simplicity. So they'll go quiet rather than perform enthusiasm. They'll withdraw rather than pretend to be fine. This is sometimes read as aloofness. It's actually a form of integrity. None of these 5 things are personality flaws. They're the behavioral fingerprints of a mind that won't stop working. And yes, they make some things harder. Crowds are easier to be in when you don't notice what the crowd is missing. Decisions are faster when your brain doesn't model 30 outcomes. Life is smoother when you can perform whatever the room needs from you. But a mind like that wouldn't be what it is if it could just turn those things off. So the next time someone calls you difficult, consider that they might be reacting to something they can't quite see. If this felt like being understood for the first time in a while, subscribe, because this channel exists for exactly that. And if you want to go deeper, the psychology of people who feel like they were born in the wrong era explains why some minds feel perpetually out of step with the world around them.